Hi, welcome to my video on the review of solving equations. This review is being done to help you when you solve cubics and quartics and quintics, etc. Solve equations. Note, the left side equals 0, and you have to have the left side in descending order. Let's do a review of irrational roots. Irrational roots, let's say rational roots are fractions, 2/3, could be a 4, but irrational roots will have a square root of a number. Square root of a number is not a perfect square. So we have an x squared minus 6 equals 0, so we say x squared equals positive 6. Square root of x squared equals plus or minus root of 6. Square root of x squared is x, and that's plus or minus root 6. So if you take the root 6 and put it here and square it, you'll get a 6 minus 6 is 0. And over here we have, again, x squared equals 12. Move the negative 12 to the right, and square root of x squared equals plus or minus the square root of 12. Square root of x squared is x, and 12 is a 4 times 3, so that's plus or minus. Square root of 4 is 2 root 3. So we have a 2 root 3 and a negative 2 root 3. Notice we have plus and minus. Notice we have here, we have descending order, x squared, x, and constant equal to 0. So I'm going to solve this one by the quadratic formula. So ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A is 1. B is negative 2. C is negative 1. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we'll sub in b, that's the negative of negative 2. B is negative 2 being squared minus 4. A is 1. C is negative 1 all over 2a, which is 2 times 1. So a negative of a negative is a positive, plus or minus. And let's work this out up here. So I just put the answer in here. That's negative 2 squared is 4. And negative times a negative is a positive. And 4 times 1 is 4. So that's an 8 divided by 2. And that becomes 2 plus or minus. And 8 is 4 times 2. Square root of 4 is 2, root 2 divided by 2. So we have 2 divided by 2 is 1, plus or minus. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So the answer is 1 plus root 2 or 1 minus root 2. And also in number 4, again, there's a quadratic, and there's 2 roots in x squared. Notice there's 2 roots, 2 roots, 2 roots is the highest degree, so it has to have 2 roots. So we have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So a is 1, b is 10, and, that's a c there, sorry for that, c is 13. Again, the formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So anytime you get a quadratic equation, you can solve by the quadratic formula. So factoring is easier if you can see the factors. But what are the factors of 13 that give you 10? They're not easy to do, so we have to do the quadratic formula. So b is the negative of the 10. B is 10, so it's a 10 squared minus 4. A is 1, B is 13. So all over 2 times 1, which is 2. So that's the negative of 10, so that's the negative 10, plus or minus. And let's work this one out right here. That's 100. And negative 4 times 1 times 13 is a negative 52. And when we subtract there, we get a 48. So that's the square root of 48 all over 2. That's a negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 48. 48 is 16 times 3, so it's a 4 root 3 divided by 2. So we get a negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So negative 5 plus 2 root 3. Negative 5 minus 2 root 3. So that's a review of irrational roots. Roots like root 3, root 2, root 6, etc. Root 3, they're irrational. If you write them as a decimal, there's no repeating, no terminating. And let's review now. Again, we're going to solve equations, but this time we're looking at imaginary roots. And again, the left side is equal to 0, and the left side is in descending order. Again, the review of imaginary roots. So x squared equals negative 4. Square root of x squared equals plus or minus the square root of negative 4. Square root of x squared is x, plus minus. Square root of 4 is 2, but you have a negative number, so that makes it imaginary. So the square root, remember the square root of negative 1 is an I. So the square root of negative 4 is 4 times negative 1. So that's 2 and an I. So anytime you have a negative number in any root, you'll have an imaginary I number. X squared equals negative 54. Square root of x squared equals plus or minus square root of negative 50. Square root of x squared is x plus minus. So the square root of negative 50 is the square root of 25 times negative 2. So that's a 5. Can't do the square root of 2, and it's an I because it's negative. So it's a 5 root 2i. So that's positive 5 root 2i and a minus 5 root 2i. And note, just to remind you, that if you multiply I times I, you get I squared, and I squared is a negative 1. And let's solve this one again. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Notice what factors of 5 will give you a 4. Well, the product, this product here is a positive, so it must be 2 negatives or 2 positives. But the factors of 5 are 5 and 1. If you have 5, positive 5, positive 1, you'll get a 6. If you have a negative 5, negative 1, you'll get a negative 6. So we have to use the quadratic formula. So A is 1, B is negative 4, and C is 5. So x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And that's the negative of a negative 4 plus or minus. B is negative 4. A is 1. C is 5. And A is 1. So the negative of a negative is a positive, plus or minus. And let's work this out right here. Negative 4 squared is 16. And we got negative 4 times 1 times 5 is a negative 20. So that's a negative 4. So that's the square root of a negative 4 all over 2. So 4 plus or minus. Square root of 4 is 2. Because it's negative, we have an I. Notice I always simplify the root first before I divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 2 root 2i divided by 2 is I. Remember, the 2 has to divide into both of these in the numerator. So we get 2 plus I, 2 minus I. And we want to solve this one, but we have to make sure that it's equal to 0 and it's in descending order. So there it is, equal to 0. Negative becomes a positive. Negative becomes a positive. And we have it in descending order. And ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So a is 1, b is 2, c is 10. And again, I kept them, I'm just reviewing, so I didn't want to make it too complicated. You know, the idea in a review is just to go over the concept of solving. So we got the formula memorized. So b is 2, so that's the negative of 2, plus or minus. B is 2, minus 4, a is 1, c is 10, and a is 1. So the negative of 2 is negative 2, plus or minus. And again, I want to work this out over here. So 2 squared is 4. 4 times 10 is a negative 40. And that gives you negative 36. 36. All over 2. So that's negative 2 plus or minus. Square root of 36 is 6. Because it's negative, we have an I. And we divide by 2. So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. 6i divided by 2 is plus or minus 3i. So we got a negative plus 3i, negative minus 3i. So that's a review of imaginary roots, which you will need to know when we solve the cubics, quartics, and quintics. And let's also review the difference of two squares. The left side is equal to 0, and we have a descending order. Because we have the difference of squares, we can solve this one by factoring, and this one would be difference of two squares. So that's 3x. Square root of 9x squared is 3x and 3x. Square root of 4 is 2 and 2. Notice there's no x in the middle, so the sum is 0. So because the product is a negative 4, we must have a plus and a minus. So we get 3x plus 2 equals 0. 3x equals negative 2 divided by 3. So x is negative 2 over 3. Or we have 3x minus 2 equals 0. 3x equals 2 divided by 3. X equals 2/3. And we could also, if you think about it, do it this way. 9x squared equals 4. And we divide by 9 on each side. Then we get x squared equals 4/9. And we do the square root of x squared plus minus the square root of 4/9. That means x is equal to plus minus square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. That's another way. But we have the fourth power. And if I try to do the fourth power of 16, I won't, notice x squared is 2 roots. X to the fourth is 4 roots. Well, if I do the fourth root of this, I'm not going to get the right answer. So what I do is I'll bring the 16, make it equal to 0. Now with a square root, you can factor or solve it like this. But with the fourth power, it's best to make it equal to 0. Now the fourth power, that's the difference of two squares. So the difference of two squares equal to 0. X to the fourth is x squared. 16 is 4 and 4. And we have a plus and a minus. Notice the difference. So this is x squared all squared, and this 4 is being squared. So that's the difference of two squares with a plus minus. So we have x squared plus 4 equals 0, or x squared minus 4 equals 0. And we have x squared equals negative 4. Square root of x squared equals plus minus the square root of negative 4. X equals plus minus. Square root of 4 is 2. And it's a negative, so it's an I. And we work this one. We get a 4. Move it over, make it positive. Square root of x squared is plus minus the square root of 4. X equals plus minus 2. So notice we have a 2 plus minus, and we have a 2i plus minus. Because that's positive, and we solve it, we're going to get a negative number, and it's an I. So notice, making it equal to 0, you will factor it as a difference of two squares, because you're going to have 4 roots. But if you did it like this and did the fourth root, you wouldn't get the 4 roots. You wouldn't see it. And right here we have the descending order, make it equal to 0, so we get like that. And we have a fourth power, and that's a square. So I see very similar. I see like a trinomial, but instead of this being x squared and x, this is x to the fourth. So this is an x squared. Factors of 4 to give you a 5 have to be 4 and 1. This is a product of 4 and a sum of -5. That's sum S. So it has to be 4 times 1. 2 and 2 won't do it because 2 and 2 will add to give you 4. So 4 and 1. Now, because the product is positive 4 and the sum is negative, then it has to be two negatives. Multiply. -4, -1, 4. Add -5. And it's an x squared. So x squared minus 4 equals 0, or x squared minus 1 equals 0. Just want to remind you, this is x to the fourth, so again, there's 4 roots. This is x to the fourth, so there's 4 roots. This is x squared, so there's only 2 roots. So I can factor, or because I have a constant here, I can say, because this is x squared, I can go x squared equals 4. Square root of x squared is plus minus the square root of 4. X is plus or minus 2. Because I have a square, then I'm going to have 2 roots on this one. Because I have a square here. Now I could factor, but if you do it like this very quickly, this is plus minus square root of 1, plus minus 1. So the roots are plus or minus 2, plus or minus 1. So if you take 2 and sub in the value of x, both sides will be the same. If you put -2 in the place of x, both sides will be the same. So there's 4 roots. And again, just to mention it, right here, I could have done x and x, and 4 is 2 and 2 with a plus and a minus. I could have factored it like that and did it by factoring to get the same answers. So it's your choice if you want to make it move the 4 over and do the square root, or if you want to factor it, your choice. And here I have 4 roots again, and notice I'm looking at it closely, and I see x to the fourth is x squared. Factors of 36 to give you a 5. Well, you got 1 times 36. Remember, that's a product, and that's a sum. That's a product, is -36. That's a sum of -5. We have 2 times 12. We have 4 times 9. And we have a 3. Did I say 2 times 12? 2 times 18, my mistake. And 3 times 12. And we have a 6 times 6, lots of factors of 36. But notice the product is negative, so the factors are going to differ. They're not going to add up. So they differ. To give me a 5 must be 4 and 9. And because multiplies to give you 36, adds to give you -5, so it must be -9 and a +4. Multiply. 4 times -9, 36. Negative. Add -5. Perfect. So again, we have x plus 4 equals 0. X minus 9 equals 0. And again, you can, if you do this one by doing the root, like this. And the square root of 4 is 2, and you get an I. And x squared equals 9. Square root of x squared equals plus minus the square root of 9. So x equals plus minus 3. So there's 4 roots. 2 are imaginary and 2 are reals. Okay, let's continue. Also, when I'm doing factoring, I also like to look, one of my first rules in factoring is to look for the GCF. And just to remind you, we have to make the left side equal to 0 in descending order. But we look for the GCF. That's the first rule in factoring. I always look to see if there's a 2 or a constant number, numerical number, or a variable. So I always look for an X that's common, or both. Right here I see x in both terms, so we take the x out. X squared divided by x is x. 4x divided by x is 4. So notice we have a product, so x is equal to 0, or x plus 4 equals 0. So x is equal to negative 4. We move the 4 over. Notice when x is common here, because x is common, if you put a 0 here, you get a 0. If you put a 0 here, you get a 0. And 0 plus 0 is 0. So when x is common, 0 is always the root. 0 is always the root. And again, x is common here, but not only x is common, but 2. So I take the 2x out. So 2x cubed divided by 2x is x squared. Negative 18x divided by 2x is negative 9. And again, this is x squared. There's 2 roots. This is x cubed, so there's going to be 3 roots. So we got x squared. We could make it, we could factor this. We get plus 3 minus 3, difference of 2 squares. So 2x equals 0. X plus 3 is equal to 0. X minus 3 is, I got equals 0 there. So we divide by 2. X is 0. X is negative 3. X is 3. And again, we could have taken this one right here and done this. Make it equal to 9. Make it equal to 0. And then solve it doing that. It's your choice. So if you factor it and let each factor equal 0, you get the answers. Or if you let x squared minus 9 equals 0, move the 9 over and do the square root, you get 2 answers. It's your choice. And I see a 5 common. 5 is the smallest numerical number, so 5 is in 10 and 15 as factors. I see an x, but I see a square as the smallest exponent, so I see a 5x squared coming out as a GCF. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, x to the 4th divided by x squared is x squared, plus 10 divided by 5 is 2, x cubed divided by x squared is x. Negative 15 divided by 5 is negative 3, x squared divided by x squared is 1. And 5x squared, I have a quadratic here, and the factors of 3 to give me a 2. Factors of 3 are 3 and 1, and okay, looks good. Let's see. And if you were thinking about this, you would go x and x. Factors of 3 are 3 and 1, and the product is negative and the sum is positive. So I must have a plus and a minus, but the 3 is plus and the 1 is minus. Multiply. 3 times negative 1, negative 3. Add. Plus 2. Perfect. So 5x squared equals 0. X plus 3 equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. Notice we have 4 roots, so we divide by 5. So x squared equals 0. And that means there's, see, x squared equals 0, but there's 2 here. So even though I'll do the square root like that, there's no plus minus 0. 0 is 0. There's 0 is a root, but there's 2 of them. So there's 2 roots here, but there's 2 zeros. In other words, if you think about it, up here, x squared equals 0, x times x equals 0. So x equals 0 or x equals 0. So what I'm saying, because that's a square, 0 is a root, but there's 2 of them. And there's another root right here called negative 3, and there's another root here, 1. So there's 4 roots altogether. There's these 2, and there's the double 0. And when I'm factoring, I also think about when I do grouping when I have 4 terms. If I have 4 terms in a polynomial, then I'll look for grouping. I'll look at the first 2, which is these 2, and I'll see x squared is common. So x cubed divided by x squared is x. X squared divided by x squared is 1. And whatever this is a plus or a minus, whatever that is, got to go here. And I see a negative 25. So that's x and 1. Divide negative 25 into both of these, I get an x plus 1. And notice that x plus 1 is common, so you take it out. When you take x plus 1 away from here, you get an x squared. When you take x plus 1 away from here, you get negative 25. And again, notice the highest power is 3, so you got 3 roots. So you got x plus 1. And it's up to you if you want to factor this or you want to let it equal to 0 and square root. So x squared is x and x. 25 is 5 and 5. And we have a minus, so it's a plus 5 minus 5. So x plus 1 equals 0. X plus 5 equals 0. X minus 5 equals 0. So product of 0 products. So each one of these are equal to 0. So x is negative 1. X is negative 5. X is 5. So there's 3 roots. X cubed. 3 roots. And number 2, again, we got 4 terms. 3, 2, 1, 0. That's a constant on the end, descending order. So we have a look at it. So what's in these? That's a 4 and an x squared. So I see a 4x squared is the GCF of the first two. That gives me 3x, and that gives me a minus 1. Now I see a negative here, so the negative got to go there. Whatever that sign is here has to go here. And notice that there's nothing common, only a 1. So let's take out the negative 1. So negative 3x divided by negative 1 is 3x. Plus 1 divided by negative 1 is negative 1. And how do I know I'm right? Because both brackets has a 3x minus 1. And what's left? Take that away, I get 4x squared. Take that away, and I get a negative 1. When I say take it away, 3x minus 1 divided into this expression gives you 4x squared. 3x minus 1 divided here gives you negative 1. And again, I got a choice. I see the difference of 2 squares. That's the difference. That's 1 squared, and that's 2x squared. So I'll do factoring. 2x factors of 1, 1, and 1. And the product is a negative, so it's a plus and a minus. So 3x minus 1 equals 0. 2x plus 1 equals 0. 2x minus 1 equals... Notice I can put ors here, like right here, put or, because any one of these roots will make this a 0. So 3x equals 1, divide by 3, x equals 1/3. 2x equals negative 1, divide by 2, x equals negative a half. 2x equals 1, divide by 2, x equals positive a half. And so there's the 3 roots that will make this true. Any one of these roots subbed in here will make the equation equal to 0. So that's a review of factoring that you need to do, again, the cubics, the quartics, the quadics that we're going to do next. And if you like my video, click the like button, the subscribe button. If you're not a subscriber, visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content that's on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Bye-bye.